our top stories, the secret CIA assessment saying Russia tried to boost Donald Trump's chances of winning the election. Bloomberg View reporter Eli Lake joining us with more from Washington. Eli, nice to see you. Apologize for the sirens in the background here. As you look at these reports about Russia, how certain, shall we say, is the CIA and the intelligence community of this assessment, you think?
It's hard to gauge necessarily certainty, but this is saying something that cybersecurity experts who don't have an axe to grind politically have been saying really since September, that you can tell that the hacks have sort of certain signatures of Russian hacking, and the delivery of the hacks through WikiLeaks is an organization that has been linked to the Russians, whether wittingly or unwittingly, particularly through its founder and leader, Julian Assange. And the fact that it was only one party that managed to have its private emails disclosed would suggest that someone had their thumb on the scales and wanted to see the other guys win. Because as the big reveal that, I mean, we sort of also had known this before, but the big part of the New York Times story today on this and Washington Post is that there was also a Russian hack of the Republican National Committee, but those were not disclosed. So, and obviously sort of using the razor of Occam, that we would sort of say, okay, well, maybe the Russians had an interest in Trump winning the election.
Putting their hand on the scale, so to speak.
Yeah, by the way, I don't think that's the causality. I think that the Trump won for a lot of reasons independent of this, but it's a disgrace, and we should all be alarmed that the Russians tried to interfere in our elections as if we were Estonia.
Eli, you say we all should be alarmed.
Yes.
The person who doesn't seem to be alarmed is the president-elect. They put out a statement, as Caroline Shively reported earlier, essentially taking on his own intelligence community, saying that the CIA is the same ones who thought Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Let's move on from all this. Also said essentially, this could be the Russians, it could be the Chinese, it could be some guy in New Jersey. What's the implications of the president-elect taking on his own intelligence community?
Well, I mean, I think the nation has to hope that he becomes more presidential when he takes the office and he gets closer during this transition. I think that it's certainly fair to criticize the CIA, who have gotten stuff wrong before because of groupthink. There has also been reforms in that process since the WMD debacle of the 2003 and 2002. So that criticism may be a little out of date, but it doesn't necessarily. You don't need the CIA to do this. There's a lot of people who are just cybersecurity experts who know this very well, who have been saying this now for months. It's not. I don't think it's a controversial issue at this point. It shouldn't be.
Well, it certainly seems like the intelligence community, to your point, some independent experts are fairly certain who it was. This does bring up, though, an interesting note as we look at the Secretary of State. Some people have called it a real-time apprentice, as we're trying to figure out who's going to be the Secretary of State. Rex Tillerson is now emerged. He's the CEO of Exxon, has emerged as possibly a front-runner. No, we met with Mr. Trump once. He's going to meet with Mr. Trump reportedly again this weekend as this interview process continues. One of the people he's closest with in the world, and for obvious reasons, is the CEO of Exxon, is Vladimir Putin. Have we ever had that before, where a Secretary of State candidate is so close to a major adversary?
I think it's one of those things that would raise serious concerns the more we learn about that in the vetting process and also the advise and consent process with the Senate. And I would say that it's interesting because one of the people that would be looked over, if indeed it does go to Tillerson, would be the current chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, who I think, anyone who's nominated should be, vetted seriously. But this is a question that would really need to come out in the hearings, particularly after this, what the Russians did in terms of hacking a major political party in the election year. So we need to kind of have that straight as we look to the next administration. I mean, by the way, this is one of the reasons why I think John Bolton would be, in a lot of ways, a much better choice, because Bolton has been pretty consistent on Russia, and he would give the president the kind of, I think, clear-eyed and hard-headed advice that he's known for when it comes to the threat that Vladimir Putin poses.
Well, he has certainly been clear. No one has to question where John Bolton stands on anything, as he's often a friend of this program. Eli Lake from Bloomberg, appreciate your insight, sir. Thanks so much.
Thank you.